We are very happy to be here, very eager to be here. And we in Saudi Arabia have a very special admiration for Korea's experience and the Korean people. And I am one of the people in the generation that lived the period of very high, intense cooperation between Korea and Saudi Arabia. So in my younger years, I used to see a lot of Koreans in my town, in Riyadh. You really have to admire the Korean experience in its all dimensions. I personally have a high respect for the Korean history and culture, and have read quite a bit on the Korean historical and cultural experience. I believe that what happened in Korea in terms of development in this century is directly linked to the history of Korea and the Korean people building nations, the Korean historic perspective, the Kingdom of Korea in the past, and the amazing experiences of the Korean people throughout their history, which I believe genetically imprinted them to be able to transform their country in the 20th century, 21st century. I, of course, believe that the Korean people don't come from nothing. They come from a very rich history. So do we in Saudi Arabia. Of course, in Saudi Arabia, we're very happy to be here, and especially in Korea. This relationship goes back to over 60 years. And of course, now we're looking forward. Korea is one of the key countries that Saudi Arabia is working with for our future in terms of the growing our economy and moving our economy away from dependence on oil. Korea is a big partner to Saudi Arabia and one of the main partners in economic and oil development. But having said that, of course, also in Saudi Arabia, the reason that we are today what we are, a stable, very developed nation that is headed to the future in a very high speed, we also don't come from nothing. And I always say that we actually don't live on an oil tanker. We live in a country with a lot of historic depth, with a lot of historic accomplishments, and a lot more to come. That's why our exhibition here today is very important, not just for us, but for the Korean people. If we are going to move forward together, it's also important for both of us as a people to understand our common historical accomplishments and to understand where do we come from. The great people of Saudi Arabia and the great people of Korea are poised to move to the future standing on solid ground. And we hope and look forward that this exhibition will be a major success like it was in its launching in China, and a major success as it moves in Asia and onwards in the future. And I know the Korean people will be extremely impressed and practically maybe surprised. And I think it's very necessary for the Korean people who understand history and understand the role Saudi Arabia has played in the modern development of Korea, that they find it very important to understand more about their partner and about their historical partnership, but also about the country that is moving forward to the future alongside with Korea, inshallah. I've always enjoyed coming here. I think the most thing that impresses me here are the people. Really, we go into the town, we go into the countryside, and I found the people to be very welcoming, very courteous, very generous. And also the development. The Korean experience is a very, very impressive experience for us. We grew up, of course, as you know, with the development of the economies of the area, whether it's Japan and then China and so on. We grew up with the Asian tigers emerging, but also lately, the Saudi people have been noticing with a lot of admiration the Korean products developing in such a thorough and a very excellent way. And this is really reflecting on the people in Korea, their spirit of excellence. I've also enjoyed the countryside here. I think one of the best experiences I've had here in the past is going to the countryside and enjoying the life in the countryside. And I wish we had time this time to do it, but we always have promised to come back here maybe in the earlier spring and to enjoy the flowers. And I know there is quite a bit of spring experience to be had here. Maybe one time we'll come in the winter even to see the snow. So we grew up in the United States in a place that's always been cold, but mostly the colors and the art. I'm especially impressed, and a secret maybe is that I'm a small collector really of Korean pottery. And I think the Korean pottery is probably, in my mind, if not the best, is one of the best in the world. We enjoyed meeting some of the Korean masters who came to Saudi Arabia and worked with our craftspeople. We've conducted some training programs for the Saudi young crafts people on pottery here in Korea. They've enjoyed time with the masters. I wish I had the time to come with them and spend a month learning this craft. So Korean art, I believe, is very much a reflection of the historic build-up of artistic expression in Korea. And that's one of the things I really enjoy very, very much. And I hope today I'll be able to, like I say, sneak out and visit some of the areas and some of the museums that, and even some of the shops that reflect even modern art of Korea. And so Korea is a very colorful country, really. I find it very colorful. I find it very enjoyable. The people of Korea have a spirit that is very interesting and very optimistic. And so it's always enjoyable to be here. I'm still involved in the aviation and the space side. I'm actually a pilot also. I've been flying since 1970s, mid-70s. I still fly professionally in the sense of my training. I fly more than 600 hours a year maybe. And this is my passion in life. And I fly different kinds of planes and I fly different kinds of jets. And I used to be, of course, with the military, flying military jets during the Gulf War. And I still keep that passion alive, and very seriously. I'm also still involved in the Association of Space Explorers. I'm involved in Saudi Arabia in our space program, and do a lot of work on the side of technology and technology development. I'm very fortunate to have known many of the world's astronauts, including the Korean lady astronaut, who happened to be in the United States at this time. I think we invited her. Very, very smart lady. And I'm also involved in many of the charity works in Saudi. We've been involved for many years with the National Disabled Children Association, which is the largest in the Middle East. Involved in the Disability Research Center that was established by King Shalman 25 years ago, and it is really one of the premier science institutions. I'm involved, of course, also in the heritage and the cultural side, and of course in the tourism side. Tourism is a major economic driver in the country. It is the second largest creator of jobs for Saudis, men and women, and it's a huge industry that is now growing very, very quickly in Saudi Arabia. The government this year has poured a lot of money and many important decisions to finance the growth of the tourism industry and the small and medium job industries related to tourism and heritage of Saudi Arabia. So my job really oversees many sectors that are related also to economic growth in the country and related to job creation and related to something that's very important, which is the preservation of our heritage, which you will see more of, I hope, tomorrow, and also turning the heritage of the country, whether it's archaeology, museums, national built heritage, the historic buildings, and which is multicultural. Saudi Arabia is an extremely multicultural country. The culture of the sea, the culture of the mountain, the culture of the desert, the culture of the south, the culture of the north, the east and west. It's a huge country. So turning that into also like an economic win in terms of restoration, opening sites to become part of the lives of the young people of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a very young country, and we're very much involved, whether I'm involved in personal level or organizational level, in a multitude of national initiatives to transform the country and the country's economy. So being also interested in culture and heritage, it is a personal thing that started with me many, many years ago, since very young age. And I imagine every Saudi is very interested in their own culture. But particularly King Salman, whom I grew up with in the same house, is a man of history and culture. So I think that also comes from that perspective, growing up in a place where people, father and mother and family, appreciates the amazing culture and the history of the country. We're involved, as you know, with our sports industry in Saudi, promoting that as part of the tourism experience. We're involved in a lot of things that relate to the economy and to the society, the social development of Saudi Arabia. That's one of the big drivers of what we do. So you could say I'm a very busy person, but everybody in Saudi Arabia is a very busy person now. Well, I think there are a lot of pieces that reflect certain dimensions of the historic experience. We have artifacts that belong to over 1 million years, and artifacts that are newly found. Some we could not bring here because of their fragility, so we have photographs. The latest, I would say, maybe the latest we found a lot of things that we have not announced yet, which are very important. But one of the latest things that we found that you might find interesting photographs today is a human finger that goes back to about 90,000 years. One of the important points that you have to understand, that one of the things that we do is also looking back at desertification, the weather and patterns and changes, and how that affected the history of Arabia. The Arabian Peninsula has always been in the middle of the ancient world, and has seen a lot of cultures come through it, whether it's trade, through trade caravans, but before that even human migrations. One of the more important things that we do is tracing human migrations coming from Africa mainly through Arabia. But these groups of people migrating did not just come and pass through Arabia, they actually settled and created cultures and kingdoms. We know that for a fact now, working with universities like Oxford and other NASA and our geological survey and our science community, and a huge project called the Paleo Desert, is that we are now very confident that Arabia was indeed rivers and savannas at a certain time in the past, until it basically dried out and became a desert. So we have a lot of embedded rivers, a lot of embedded finds, whether it's human remains or animal remains, elephant tusks, That's probably one of the favorite things I have. I think we have is the huge 2.5 meter elephant tusks of past animal life that has lived in Arabia that actually required a lot of forage and a lot of water. So Arabia is a very dynamic and very interesting place, and we have just begun. It's a huge place to be working in. I would wish one day, like now we work with more than 35 international science teams, joint Saudi international science teams, that we eventually will also work with Korean scientists. And I think we are now working on that to come and excavate in certain areas where Korean scientists would have more depth of knowledge than what we have. We work, as you know, we work with the Japanese, we work with the Chinese, we work with the Americans, we work with the Australians, we work with many, many nations in discovering the multitude of cultures that have existed in Arabia and have transformed Arabia and its economy and its people as we see it today. So I would say one of the more beautiful pieces we have is the artifacts that we have excavated out of Tema in the north, some of the beautiful human-like sculptures. I think the Korean people will be very interested in the beautiful sculptures we have in Arabia. Some of the horses. One of the big discoveries we had maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is a place in Arabia where it used to be, they used to literally train horses, Arabian horses, and those horses were very much sought after in the south and the north. So we found these amazing, and they're here, stone, sculptured horse and hunting dogs and so on. So there's quite a bit of art, which also explains why today the Saudi modern art movement is very strong. Is because, again, it's that genetic transfer over the years of the artistic skill. So you'd see that today or tomorrow night in the artifacts, jewelry, sculptures, man-made, human-made objects that are absolutely stunning. So, and we're still in the beginning, so it's a very exciting time to be alive in Saudi and to be involved with this amazing work. It really is. First of all, I say, by all means, she's more than welcome to come as soon as possible to Saudi Arabia, and we'll help her and the crew to come and do a nice program and be free to photograph anything they want. And I think that will be fantastic. So to bring that to the Korean people and to build more on what we're trying to do here. This exhibition is not really just about antiquities. It's really about knowing your partner. It's knowing the depth of the culture of the country, our country. It's knowing that we come from a great history and we envision and moving forward, inshallah, to a great future. The other thing is that we have spent the last few years building up our tourism sector, like the Koreans did also, and tourism services. And I think pretty much now we're very ready for tourists and of course journalists from a certain level of interest. There's nothing in Saudi Arabia really to hide. I think also we're not a closed country, as you know. Last year, I think it's about 10.5 million visas were given last year to people that come through, not just workers, but everybody. People come for the religious pilgrimage and other spiritual issues. And also people come for business, come for exhibitions. We are, for instance, now becoming very fast one of the largest countries of conferences and exhibitions in the Middle East. Our national airline is growing to become probably one of the biggest in the Middle East. We're building airports like no other country in the Middle East, over 30 airports. Jeddah is the biggest airport, will be opened this year, and we have about 10 other airports under development and expansion. We have absolutely, like I said, everything to show in Saudi. I think people will find it extremely, extremely impressive what has been happening in the country and what is coming to happen. And again, also, it is really a beautiful country. I think my crew and will provide you with a lot of material, but our website, our photo library, Saudi Colors, it's called Saudi Colors. I think Majid can give you the connection, so you can see through it. I travel a lot in the country. I enjoy hiking and climbing and diving and doing all kinds of fantastic things. It is really, really a very unique country. It's a beautiful country, and like Korea, I think the most beautiful thing about Saudi Arabia is its people. So we hopefully this year, in 2017, if not the early part of 2018, will also open up for the tourism visa. But we're also keen that people who come, whether in groups or small groups, come to enjoy the country. In Saudi Arabia, we don't need to open, nor are we planning anyway to open for mass tourism. We want quality tourism, high quality tourism. And I have very good relations with the tourism, with the Korean Tourism Board, and the tourism department here have been very good partners. We meet always in the conferences, and we belong to the same organizations, whether the United Nations Tourism Organization, and we have meetings happening in Madrid actually 2 days from now to elect a new Secretary General, or whether it's joint projects that we work with the Koreans. So I think very much we're going through the same tourism development experience, the two countries. And of course, as you know, we have one of the largest and fastest growth in the accommodation sector in the Middle East. And the government in Saudi Arabia just announced the approval of our request to create about $1 billion a tourism loan bank for the first phase to loan people that need to go into the tourism business, whether it's building hotels, building different kinds of accommodation. Also, the government has approved major funding, almost about $1 billion, for restoration and new museums. This year, we are constructing 18 new regional museums in Saudi, and restoring many, many sites, and very much involved in creating a lot of the small industries. So it's a sector that's under very fast build-up and growth, and our doors are always been open to people to come and enjoy. We have a lot of expats living in the country that are now traveling at their own will. You know, they don't have to have any permissions to go anywhere in the country, so we're seeing a lot of feedback, photographs and videos. So I think it'll be fantastic. And I can tell you this, when the tourism visa starts, one of the main countries we'll be marketing in is Korea. The Korean people is exactly the kind of tourists we would like to have in our country, for two reasons. One is the Korean tourists are known worldwide to be very respectful of the local culture. They know how to come and enjoy a place and come out with an experience. And they're very organized and very educated. And second is that we have, like I said, shared history, Korea and Saudi Arabia, that goes back over 60 years. So I think it's very important as we, the Saudis, come to Korea, whether there is students now, there is more than 600 Saudis who are studying in Korea, learning Korean language, like you speak the Arabic language now, or people who visit Korea from Saudi Arabia for business or for pleasure. I think we will enjoy very much to bring Koreans to Saudi Arabia to be introduced firsthand to this partner that has been there for Korea for the last 60 years. Let me answer the last question first. President Trump, of course, himself explained why he's coming to the region. why he's coming to Saudi Arabia first and then visiting two other countries. It's part of what President Trump said, his drive to find common grounds between the great religions of the world. And Saudi Arabia, at the end of the day, is the place of Islam. And Islam is a great religion. The followers of Islam are in growth around the world, over 1 billion plus people. And Islam is a religion of all humanity. I think, of course, the United States, Saudi Arabia and the United States have enjoyed a historic relationship, partnership, I would say, in many, many issues. And of course, there are many pressing issues at this time of our lives, in the Middle East especially. Relations between Islam and the rest of the world. And the Middle East is becoming very, very important. Middle East is going through a very, very difficult transition time. And I think the President himself mentioned that he's coming to Saudi Arabia as a leading country in the Middle East, and of course the leading country in the Islamic world, to build the bridges and to solidify the partnership that has existed for many, many years. And we look forward to in Saudi Arabia to continue, as the king, our king, King Salman said, the custodian to holy mosques, to continue building bridges with countries. In this case, also like in Korea, the visit of King Salman to the Far East last month has shown not just the willingness, but shown the seriousness and the focus of our country and our leader to continue building those bridges, whether it's their political or economic or even social, but mostly also friendship. And it's a very, very complex world we live in today. And Saudi Arabia has always played a major role in this world, and will continue to do so, even more so at this very important historic time. Looking at the common cultures, like I mentioned before, I think I spoke about that quite a bit. But I think one of the most common things you'll see in the exhibition is the artistic inclination of the two people. The Korean culture comes from a very deep history, thousands of years of an experience that have produced great art and of course in turn great artifacts. And in the exhibition you'll see also great art and depth of culture. I will leave it to the Korean people. I would really love to see people in Korea, especially the specialists, who are very much versed in, and not more knowledgeable than I am, of course, in art and culture, to visit the exhibition. And we have many people visiting the exhibition, and to maybe write about commonalities in artifacts, and as they see unfolding a whole history of a nation unfolding in front of their own eyes.